Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to talk about everybody being banned from YouTube, Fivver, and PayPal, and a whole lot more, so go ahead and stick around. Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to episode 144 of the BSP. My name is Bandrew. This is what I says. Like always, down below, there are timestamps so you can skip around and save a couple of minutes. But if you got the time, I would suggest listening to the entire episode. Couple of personal things up top. First off, I am sure you noticed, new podcast theme music. Bit longer than it used to be, but I did it for a specific reason. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the reason why I did the new music. We have new podcast artwork. This artwork was done by Tristan Tate, who is an Australian artist who I was put in contact with from Joshua C. Liston, the host of the On the Bubble podcast and a member of the Gonna Geek Network. Now, I think Tristan did an awesome job here, and the reason why I wanted my podcast art reworked was that I did not believe that my last artwork really stood out or popped in podcatchers or on YouTube, and I think this artwork really does stand out. It captures my insanity, my conspiratorial brain, and the way that I preach that we're all doomed and we are all being spied on by all these companies. And I think he did an awesome job there, and I really do hope you guys like it because I love it. And when I saw the artwork, I realized the last theme song didn't really fit with it. So I streamed on Saturday and wrote that new theme music, and I hope you guys like that as well. Hopefully it will fit with the podcast. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll figure out together. Now let's go ahead and jump into the news, and we're going to start with one very short piece of news that is somewhat good and is needed because the rest of the news is not very good at all. The Nintendo Switch now has the ability to download the YouTube app. That's pretty much it. If you had the Switch before, you apparently did not have access to the YouTube app, but now you do. As a YouTuber, I am happy about this. As a YouTuber, if you are one, you should be happy about this because the more places that somebody can gain access to your content, the better, because that means the more opportunities they have to be served your content and the more opportunities they have to watch your content. So all around, this is just good news for both Switch users as well as YouTube content creators. Now let's jump to the dumpster fire, which is the news this week. A gamer's channel was suspended from YouTube. This last week, a gamer by the name of Shirako, who I've never personally watched before, but he had his channel suspended from YouTube. Now, I will go ahead and link the video that caused this suspension in the show notes and description, but I'll also go ahead and describe it to you. So this guy was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a new game, which is set in the Wild West, I believe, and it's an open world kind of game where you can do almost anything. In this game, there's a woman suffragette, that is a woman who is fighting for women's suffrage, standing on the corner, talking about it. He walks up with his character, listens to her for a minute, walks away, then walks back to her, listens to her for another few seconds, then punches this character in the face. The woman starts running away. He chases her down on his horse, lassos her, drags her behind his horse. Jesus. Then he ties her up, puts her on the back of his horse, drives out to the swamp, or rides out to the swamp, rather, and then feeds her to a crocodile. It's absolutely insane. I don't know how this is possible to do in a game. It was bonkers. I will admit I laughed at it, but I understand it's disgusting and a little bit insane. Regardless, this guy got banned because of it. Now, I do want to point out that although this is insane behavior in a video game, I don't think it's out of the ordinary because there are plenty of games that are as violent, if not more violent. Look at Resident Evil, where they eat people, I believe. Look at Dead Space, where you get attacked and you see people impaled by demon spawn necromorphs that are created by some kind of religious cult. Is that not worse than dragging a woman behind a horse and feeding her to an alligator? Maybe it's because this guy had the option and he had to actually decide to do this. I don't know. But regardless, he was suspended. He went to Twitter, posted about it. People got up in arms, and I believe rightfully so. And his channel did get reinstated. Now, it seems to me that somebody either at YouTube or somebody in the audience saw this video, was offended by it, and reported it, and that led to his channel being taken down. But as I said, his channel did get reinstated, and now his videos are simply age restricted, I believe. Or maybe it's just that one video that's age restricted. So his entire channel is back up, and you can see this video. I'll link it down below. But although I personally wouldn't do this in a video game, I understand that it's there for people to do. If anybody's at fault here, it shouldn't be the YouTuber, it should be the game developers. It's insane to me that this guy was even banned in the first place. And the reason why I have an issue with that is this guy has 500,000 subscribers. But what if this exact same thing happened to somebody who only had 1,000 subscribers or 500 subscribers, but they had been making videos for 6 years? They might not be able to get that decision reversed, meaning their entire YouTube career is over. You're no longer going to have that channel that you've been working on and grinding on for years. You've been making this content for YouTube, and because somebody was offended by something that happened to a series of ones and zeros, need I remind people that that's exactly what it is? This guy did not abuse anybody. If anything, he just abused a series of ones and zeros. What's wrong with that? That's bonkers to me. And I'm just going to end it there. Yes, this does concern me, but maybe it was an honest mistake, or maybe this is a group of people trying to get people taken down because they're offended by something that happens in a video game. I don't know. I hope this doesn't happen again, because if the person who's affected by this has a very low subscriber number, they may not be able to get YouTube to reverse it. They may not be able to get YouTube's attention. Okay, next up, we got another person being banned, and this would be VoiceOver Pete being banned from Fivver. Now, if you don't know who VoiceOver Pete is, he's some kind of character who you can pay money to read a script that you provide him. And needless to say, if that's available on the internet, people will pay you to say some silly things, and he has turned into somewhat of a meme where a bunch of people would pay him money. They would ask him to say something, and then at the end of the script, he would say, well, first off, I need you to leave your mom's credit card number down below, as well as the expiration date and the 3-digit code. And here is an example of that exact thing.
So guys, we did it. We reached 250,000 subscribers, 250,000 subscribers, and still growing. Whew. The fact that we reached this number in such a short amount of time, it's just phenomenal. And I'm just amazed. Thank you. Thank you all so much for this kind of support to this channel and helping it out, helping it grow. I love you guys. You guys are awesome and amazing. For more pyro memes, please post your credit card number, 3 digits on the back, the expiration month and year. But you got to be quick so that the memes can be good and spicy, or you'll be game ended.
Now, in my opinion, that is very clearly a goof, but maybe if you're just an 8-year-old, you don't know that it's a goof. And I am guessing that what happened is an 8-year-old or some child actually fell for this, grabbed their parents' credit card, and put it in the comments of some video with this meme. After that happened, I bet the parent found out, contacted Fivver and said, "How are you allowing this old man to scam children? These children are being scammed." I'm guessing that's exactly what happened, and because of that, Fivver revoked this guy's account. Now, that's not the end of the story, because VoiceOver Pete apparently had 250 orders in his queue. Each of those orders cost $50, so that translates to $12,500 in his queue that he had to complete to get that money. But now he doesn't have that. So what happened to that money? Well, it did get refunded to the actual users who submitted those requests, but not to the payment methods. What I mean by that is Fivver went ahead and issued a refund to these people, but it's only to their Fivver account. So they have to spend that money on Fivver still. That's the insane part here. Now, to point out how ridiculous this is, I went ahead and came up with a scenario that I think draws a very good parallel here. Let's say I walk into an Apple store, give Apple $1,500 so I can get the new iPhone XS Max, and then they say, okay, well, hang on a second. We're no longer selling this phone. They don't give me the phone, and they don't give me my cash back. They just give me an Apple gift card that I have to spend at the Apple store. Now, what am I supposed to do with that gift card? I'm clearly in the market for a phone, but now I don't have the option to get that phone because Apple is no longer selling it. It's the same thing with Voice over Pete and getting refunds only to use in their store. People went to Fivver to buy services from Voice over Pete. Now, Voice over Pete is no longer there, so they don't have the ability to buy that because you're not giving them their money back. That's the insane thing here. Now, I do somewhat understand why he was kicked off of the platform because I imagine some kids did fall for this and parents would be outraged, and it is a little bit more egregious than the whole Red Dead Redemption 2 thing. I personally understand it's a goof, but I know there are a lot of stupid people out there. And I don't know if we should implement a stupid people tax. I don't know if we should do that. I mean, this could be considered a stupid person tax, but I don't think that's necessary. Let's go to the next story. And it is that PayPal is banning everybody. PayPal banned the Proud Boys, Tommy Robinson, and a number of Antifa groups. PayPal came out with a statement and they said, striking a necessary balance between upholding free expression and open dialogue and protecting principles of tolerance, diversity, and respect for all people is a challenge that many companies are grappling with today. We work hard to achieve the right balance and to ensure that our decisions are values-driven and not political. We carefully review accounts to take action as appropriate. We do not allow PayPal services to be used to promote hate, violence, or other forms of intolerance that is discriminatory. Now, I'll just come out and admit, I don't know much about these groups or the people associated with them, whether it be the Proud Boys, which was founded by Gavin McInnes, whether it be Antifa, I don't know who founded that one, or whether it be the English Defense League, or the English Defense Fund. I don't know what the name is, but it was associated with Tommy Robinson. All I can say is that I think this is a very slippery slope that all of these companies that are deplatforming people are going down. And the reason that I say that is I don't know if all of these groups are violent, if they advocate for violence, or maybe PayPal just doesn't like what they're preaching or what they're saying. Or another option is maybe people are pressuring PayPal to remove all these groups and these people from their platform. But regardless of the reason for the deplatforming, now every single company that has done that in the past is going to be viewed as willing to and able to deplatform somebody. Therefore, if there's a group of people in the public that decide that they don't like a certain personality or an organization in the future, they can now attack those companies and publicly shame them into deplatforming people, mainly because these platforms have shown the entire world that they are willing to and able to deplatform someone. Now, I am sure that there are plenty of people out there who will say, oh, you know what, it's perfectly fine that these people were banned because they're all extremists. They are all crazy people and they don't deserve the right to money. But who's to say that next month, atheism or your denouncement of a certain political figure won't be viewed as extremism? Right now, we understand what is viewed as extremism, but what is going to be defined as extremism next month or 2 years down the road? And at that point, we've already set the precedent that you don't allow extremists to use your platform, and now you're an extremist, so you don't have access to money, you don't have access to Apple, iTunes, podcasts, you don't have access to any of these things because you're a crazy person now. Now, I am not saying that this is absolutely going to happen. All I am saying is that there is a possibility that either an employee in their company could abuse this or companies themselves could come under fire and attack for allowing somebody to use their platform. And that company will have to make a decision. Do they want to ban you? Or do they want to really hurt their bottom line by getting outraged consumers to say, we're never going to use PayPal again, and protesting for people to never use PayPal again. I know the company is probably going to choose, let's ban this person because we want to keep earning money and stay in business. And I guess the way that I'll end this story is just by saying I don't envy the position that these companies have put themselves in, because now they are all censors to some extent. I understand they do have the right to ban whoever they want for violating their terms of service, but now they have opened the door. They have opened the floodgates, and now they are going to be viewed as willing to and able to censor people. That is not a good position to be in, and I think they will all regret going down this road, because who's to say who's extreme tomorrow? And that's actually it for the really depressing dumpster fire news. Let's talk about a good piece of news here. Apple devices are now going to be sold on Amazon. Amazon went ahead and made a deal with Apple to sell their iPhones, their iPads, and Apple Watches directly, and they will become available on Amazon over the next couple of weeks. They'll be available in the US, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Japan, and India. Now, something that I found very interesting about this article is that all of the Apple resellers that are currently on Amazon are going to be kicked off on January 4th, 2019, and will be forced to reapply with Apple to become official resellers. And bottom line, I just think this is going to be very, very good for Apple, because I think it will lead to more impulse purchases. But why do I think that? It's because a lot more people browse Amazon all day, every day, add stuff to their cart, and let it sit there while they think about buying it. I don't imagine many people go to apple.com and sit there and browse every single day thinking, I need some toilet paper, I'm going to go to apple.com. That's not how it works. People go to Amazon, they put stuff in their cart, then they think, oh, well, I'm making this purchase. It's been there for a couple of months. Let's buy the new iPhone XS Max. I think it will lead to more impulse purchases, and that will be good for Apple. Maybe not best for the average consumer, but good for Apple. And the last piece of news is very short. It's that Disney is going to be launching their streaming service in late 2019. It is going to be titled Disney Plus. What an absolutely creative name. And this is going to be hosting all their movies, all their shows, and all things Disney, which I think will have a very large audience. That's really all the news there. I guess I should point out that I think the segmentation of streaming services is just going to keep getting worse and worse. And these streaming services seem to be turning into nothing more than online cable channels, which is kind of what we asked for. We said we want a la carte. Well, we're getting it, and it's costing an arm and a leg. Now let's jump to what you had to say. The first comment comes from Alex. He says, hey Ross, I've ran through the same problem with applications like Skype or Facebook adjusting your mic volume randomly. Here's the only working solution that I've found. A low-impact program sits in the background, and if anything changes the microphone's volume, it immediately changes it back. It is completely ridiculous that we have to do this. I have no idea why there's no option to disable apps controlling your audio through Windows, but that's the only solution I have found. Here's the link. Now, the reason that I wanted to share this is in case anybody out there was having a similar issue as Ross last week. He was the gent who was having an issue with Facebook or Skype automatically adjusting his microphone's gain and messing up his recordings, but there is a solution, and I also wanted to share it because this is why I love the Bandrew Says podcast and the podcastage community, because there are so many super smart people out there who are more than willing to help people out and share their expertise and their experiences. And I just wanted to say I appreciate you guys so much. And I will go ahead and, of course, link the video in the show notes and description if you got any issues like Ross did. Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate you. Next comment comes from Lyowin. He says, I should really have you promote my Bad Actor t-shirt with the amount of times it is used. LOL. Lyowin, here you go, man. Check out Lyowin's Bad Actor t-shirt. There you go. And the last comment comes from Chaz. He says, I agree that the Mac Mini looks to be an excellent product. I'm honestly considering it, but I wonder if a refreshed Mac Pro announcement will be right around the corner. I do think that there is a Mac Pro announcement in the very near future, probably March 2019, but more likely October 2019, so it's still maybe a year away. But if you're just doing audio work or editing 1080p video, I do think that the iMac Pro or the Mac Pro is going to be overkill for that because the Mac Mini is still a pretty powerful machine if you go with the 6-core Core i7. I picked up the Core i5 6-core version and it's working very speedy. I haven't done any super in-depth editing or testing on it, but I'm going to be doing that. And I think that something like the Mac Mini is going to be perfectly sufficient, especially if your main focus is just audio. You don't need a $3,000 or a $4,000 or a $5,000 machine to make that work. But I do agree, I think the Mac Mini is awesome, and I am really enjoying using it since my old one was 4 or 5 years old, and it was real slow. Okay, now let's jump to my favorite part of the podcast, the Ask Bandrew segment. All right. All right, guys, if you got any questions, go ahead and send them to askbandrew@gmail.com, and I may answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. That was a variation on the actual Ask Bandrew theme. Let me go ahead and play the original Ask Bandrew and then the new theme music again. See if you guys can spot the variation on the theme. That's the original. Yeah. The theme is the entire melody. It's just sped up, and then the very last bar plays it normally, but it's in A minor, so it's actually an E chord that's arpeggiated instead of a C major, I think it is. I just had fun with it, so the themes can match. The new Bandrew Says podcast theme and the Ask Bandrew theme. Let me know what you think. Okay, first question comes from Andrew. He says, I'm a huge fan of your shows, and they've been super insightful when I buy gear. I know you get a lot of requests for videos, but I was wondering if you could post some notes about the exact steps you go through in post to get your audio ready for upload, such as numbered steps, limiter, equalization, compression, etc. I've been using Levelator 2, but sometimes have issues with it jerking the audio around, especially with intro and outro tracks. Again, I can't tell you how much fun I have watching your show and how much I've learned from you. Many thanks, Andrew. Andrew, thank you very much for the email. I appreciate you asking the question, and I am going to walk you through the unnecessarily complicated steps that I take to process my audio. I went ahead and filmed a walkthrough of all the plugins that I used last week when recording with the Sennheiser MD441U. It is a lot, it is unnecessary, and it is overkill, and probably does degrade my audio quality, but here is that walkthrough. Okay, so this is the absurd amount of processing that I have been doing on my podcast vocal track, and I'll go ahead and walk you through each of the plugins that I'm using and the reason that I am using it. The first effect that I have in my chain is the RX7 breath control, which just helps control some of the breaths. So if you have a lot of really deep breaths in, this will help control those by either removing them or decreasing them in velocity or volume significantly. Next up is the RX7 Mouth Declick plugin, which does exactly what the title says. It is essentially just removing a lot of those clicks from smacking your lips together, or if you have a lot of saliva and you have the annoying mouth noises, this will help remove that. Next up, I have the RX7 Denoise, which just helps remove any kind of underlying hum, any kind of background noise going on. I don't run it too aggressively. I use it kind of subtly, and it does affect the sound quite drastically in a negative way. So I do try to keep this to a minimum, and if I record quiet enough or cleanly enough, I will not use this because this does affect the sound quite a bit. After the voice denoise, I then run it into two different compressors, which are from the Universal Audio ecosystem, the 1176LN, which has a very fast attack. This will capture any kind of fast transients. If I have a plosive or any really quick, very loud noises, this will help capture that. And then I run into the LA2A, which is a slower compressor, and it just kind of beefens it up, evens it out, and gives it that very musical compression. Then after the compression, I will run it through an EQ, and as you can see, I don't do anything too drastic. The biggest cut that I have here is negative 1.5 decibels. I try to keep it subtle and just fix any minor issues that I have. Here with the MD441U, it seemed to be lacking in the body, so I boosted at around 122 hertz. Then I cut it around 335 hertz, 1000 hertz, and 2350 hertz as well to clear out some nasaliness or some harshness from my voice. Then after the EQ, I will run it through the RX7 de-esser, which is pretty self-explanatory. It will just capture any of those harsh sounds and just remove them out or tamper them down a little bit. Then one of the last steps that I took last week, which I'm just playing around with, is throwing on the Waves vocal rider, which just maintains your level within a certain threshold. I'm not 100% sure if I like it, if it's right for me, but I'm just playing around with it to see if it can improve my podcast audio quality. And the last plugin on this channel strip is the RX7D clip, because last week I ran into some issues with some clipping artifacts. I thought I had set my gain properly, but every once in a while I would peak, or running it through all this software or these plugins would cause a peak, and I did not want to have that in there, so I removed that out using the RX7 declip. And the very last step for my podcast is running the audio through Auphonic. I don't use the noise or hum reduction, and I don't use the high pass filter. I just use it to get my target loudness at negative 15 lufs. I know that people say go for negative 16, but with my podcast, comparing it to others, it has always seemed a little bit quieter. So I think shooting for negative 15 for myself is a little bit better of an option. Okay, Andrew, I hope that helped you out. I know it's complicated, I know it is excessive, and I know all those plugins add up to a lot of money. You don't need to do all of that. It's just me being a little bit, I guess, insane with trying to get perfect audio and ultimately probably degrading the audio quality by doing all of that stuff. I'm fully aware, but hope that helps. Next question comes from Age of Boredom. Hey, Bandrew, here are some questions for you. You mentioned a few times that you're really into coffee. What's your home coffee making setup? Personally, I have a V60, Chemex, AeroPress, a French press, and an Encore grinder. I think my joint favorite brewing method are the V60 and Chemex. What's your go-to coffee shop order? Mine's a black filter coffee, but if I can't have that, I go for black Americano. If I feel like shaking it up, I enjoy a flat white or maybe a Vietnamese drip if it's available. Biggest turnoff in gaming YouTube videos, for examples, excessive swearing, screaming, apart from the odd jump scare. I bet you have a lot of people ask you for advice with their YouTube channels. What's the most common mistake you see people make? Examples being bad thumbnails, bad descriptions, no keywords, etc. And will Bandrew Says, or one of your YouTube channels, ever use the new Premiere feature on YouTube? Cheers, Age of Boredom. Well, howdy, Age of Boredom. Thank you very much for sending it another email. I appreciate you and welcome back. So as far as the coffee, for a while I was getting into grinding coffee fresh and using an AeroPress, but it did get to be a little bit of a burden. When I wake up in the morning, I just need caffeine in my stupid face hole as fast as possible because I am useless for the first hour out of my day. So I kind of ignore that and I don't do that anymore. I just buy Death Wish coffee that's pre-ground. I throw that in just a drip coffee maker and I delay the brew. So the grounded coffee is sitting in this thing overnight, just getting more aerated and just getting awful, but I don't care. I don't drink it for the flavor, even though it does taste delicious. I just drink it so I can function at all in the morning. As far as the coffee shop order, my go-to is the black Americano, and that is because I go to Starbucks. I know it's not good, but I hate their actual drip brew. I think they over-roast the beans, and it just tastes burnt and disgusting. With the Americano, you still get a similar amount of caffeine, but they do the espresso and then hot water, so it kind of dilutes the awful flavor of their over-roasted beans, and that's what I do. I go with an Americano, and nothing in it. Why would I do that? I drink coffee because I like it and I hate milk. Disgusting. Next, turn off for gaming. I really don't watch enough to have any very, I guess, controversial opinions here. I don't have any very well thought out criticisms of gaming, but if I had to pick one, I guess it would be excessive trash talk or overly macho mentality. What I mean by that is, oh, you're such a little B word. Oh, you're such a little P word. You don't know how to game. I'm going to come over and have sensual relations with your mother. I think that's such stupid nonsense. Now, as far as common YouTube mistakes, I say not being original and also not improving. What I mean by the first one is there are so many people out there who will see a popular YouTube channel like Peter McKinnon or Casey Neistat and say, oh, they're really successful. I'm going to do exactly what they're doing. Now, as a viewer, if you have the option to watch Casey Neistat or Peter McKinnon, the originals, or you can watch somebody very poorly knocking off those two content creators, why would anybody select the cheap knockoffs? Now, I'm not saying that you can't and you shouldn't emulate people because that's a way that a lot of people start. They don't know what their style is. They don't know what their voice is. So they start by kind of copying and emulating other YouTubers or other creators. And then as time goes on, as they have done it some more, they really start to find their own voice. That's fine. But just don't get complacent by copying somebody. Really focus on trying to find your own voice and your own style because that's what's going to make people want to watch you. They don't want to watch a cheap knockoff of somebody else. They want to watch that creator if they're looking for that style of content. As far as not improving, people just tend to get complacent and they say, oh, well, it's good enough for me. And they never watch their videos back. They never say, what can I improve from this video to this video? That's really it. And with all of that being said, I guess if you're just doing YouTube for fun and you don't enjoy the other aspects of video creation like improving, editing, audio, all of that stuff, and you have zero desire to grow, that's fine. Ignore what I just said and just have fun. But I would ask you, why are you even doing it in the first place if you don't enjoy it? I don't know. And that's it. Oh, the premiere feature, probably not. I don't think I'm going to be using that because I don't think my reviews are premiere worthy, and I've heard bad things about it killing people's channel. Okay, last email comes from Peter B. June from the Gentleman Geek podcast. He says, my cousin and I have started a podcast, and I want to respect our listeners' time as you have outlined in your prior videos, so I have started providing timestamps. However, I caught myself saying doobly doos in reference to where people can find the timestamps. Out of respect of someone who I enjoy listening to and an awesome content creator, I wanted to know if I could continue using it or if I should refrain from using it and get off your lawn. Thanks for providing all the content you do. Peter B. June, Gentleman Geek Podcast. Peter, or Pete, absolutely go ahead and use it. Use it to your heart's content. I should disclose this. I actually stole it from the Vlog Brothers. So take it, use it, and whenever somebody says, hey, Peter, can I use it? Pass it along. Let the long tradition of stealing from the Vlog Brothers continue. And you can find all the timestamps for this podcast in the doobly doo down below. That's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. Again, if you want to have a question answered, send it to askbandrew@gmail.com. Want the audio or the video version or the show notes of this podcast? You can find that at bandrewsays.com. I'll talk to you all next week. See ya.
This has been a Geeks Rising production, your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.